The river was not supposed to be dangerous, at least not to her eyes. She had grown up hearing that its current was playful, sometimes wild but never truly cruel. Yet on that cold evening, with the sun stretching its last golden rays across the dusty horizon, she learned just how merciless moving water could be. One slip on the mossy bank and she was gone, swallowed in seconds by a rush of icy force that tugged her down as though the river wanted to keep her forever. The panic hit hard. Her lungs burned, her arms flailed, her cries were smothered by waves that carried her further away from safety. She thought of the people she would never see again, the laughter she would never hear again, and in that choking, spinning blur, a fierce truth settled. She was not strong enough to fight. But just as her body gave way to exhaustion, there was a sudden break in the storm. A man on horseback, hat tipped low, spurred his stallion straight into the water without hesitation. He was the kind of figure you read about but never expect to meet. Tall in the saddle, fearless in the face of danger, his lasso discarded as he plunged in after her. The world slowed as she felt his arms wrap around her trembling frame, pulling her up, holding her head above the rushing current. His voice, steady but urgent, cut through the roar of the water. "I've got you. Don't you let go." She clung to him, not because she believed she could make it, but because he made her believe she had no choice but to survive. He dragged her back toward the bank, step by step, every muscle straining against the current that fought to take her back. Finally, with one last surge, they collapsed together on the muddy shore, gasping, drenched and shaking. She coughed river water, tears mixing with the rain, and all she could do was cling to him as though he were the only solid thing left in the world. And maybe in that moment he was. He didn't push her away, didn't rush her to stand. He just held her against his chest, warmth against the cold, steady heartbeat against her storm. He didn't let go until her trembling slowed, until the panic in her eyes gave way to something softer, something alive. She realized then that sometimes salvation doesn't come in the form of miracles or destiny. It comes in the form of a stranger who refuses to let go when you need them most. And dear viewers, if you felt that rush, that pull of survival and hope, then don't just watch and move on. Subscribe now, because stories like this, raw, real, and unforgettable, are what we bring to you. And the next chapter will pull you even deeper into the river of fate. The night deepened around them, and though the storm had passed, the echo of the river's roar lingered in her ears, like a warning she would never forget. She sat wrapped in his weathered coat, shivering less now, though her heart still raced with the memory of being dragged under. The cowboy knelt beside her, his hat set aside, his eyes steady and unshaken, like he had stared down danger 1,000 times before and learned never to flinch. Yet there was a gentleness in the way he stayed close, in the way his hand never left her shoulder, grounding her as if to remind her she was still alive, still breathing, still here. She wanted to speak, to thank him, to ask him why he risked everything for a stranger, but the words tangled in her throat. And when she finally looked into his eyes, she realized no explanation was needed. He had not leapt into the river because of who she was. He had done it because of who he was. A man who would never stand by while someone drowned in fear and water. The fire he lit crackled between them, casting shadows on the tall grass. And for the first time since the river pulled her under, warmth began to return to her bones. She listened as he spoke softly about rivers, about how currents were deceptive, stronger than they appeared, but also how they tested the will of anyone who fell into them. "The river will try to take you," he said, his voice low. "But if you've got someone holding on, it doesn't stand a chance." She realized then that what had just happened was more than survival. It was a reminder that sometimes life throws us into currents. We cannot fight alone, and sometimes we are saved not by our strength, but by another's refusal to let us go. The fear in her chest slowly gave way to gratitude, and gratitude began to feel like something stronger, something that might one day be called trust. He looked at her then, really looked, as though to make sure she wasn't just alive in body, but alive in spirit again. And when she nodded, assuring him she would be all right, he smiled, not the smile of a hero seeking thanks, but of a man content simply knowing someone had made it out of the river because he was there. The stars stretched wide above them, silent witnesses to a night that would be etched forever in her memory, not as the night she nearly drowned, but as the night she was pulled back to life by a cowboy who refused to let go. Viewers, if this story stirred something in you, if it made you feel the rush of the current, the strength of a stranger's grip, and the warmth of hope rising from the cold, then don't just let this moment drift away. Hit subscribe now, because stories like this don't just tell themselves. And the next one might be the one that reminds you that no matter how strong the current, there is always someone ready to pull you back to shore.